Hi, I'm Ginny Wolfe with the Cambodian Institute of Directors, and I'm here with our guest, Stephen Higgins, who is, as many of you know, a real powerhouse of knowledge here in Cambodia in many fields. But today we're going to be talking about finance, communications, the state of the economy, not just in Cambodia, but globally, and what geopolitical implications there might be for Cambodia in terms of tariffs, trades, other things. And then if you're doing business in Cambodia, what is it that you need to be focused on to help your business kind of get through some maybe tumultuous times and come out on the other end as or more prosperous as you are today? So, Stephen, thank you so much for being here with us. Stephen is the co-founder and managing partner at Mekong Strategic Capital here in Phnom Penh. So, Stephen, you just did a webinar with us where you gave us a really good synopsis of where Cambodia has been from, say, 2023 to now, and with a look back at pre-COVID as well. Maybe in a nutshell, could you fill us in, give us a little background?
Yeah, so thanks, Jenny, and wonderful to be here. The Cambodian economy started to have a serious downturn from the end of 2022. And by the time we got to 2023, it had become a serious downturn. And we would argue it was most likely in recession. And there's a range of indicators for that. So if you look at the export sector, excluding electrical exports, they were down 4% in 2023. If you look at consumption-based taxes, so VAT and excise, which give a good sense of what is going on with consumer spending, they were down 13% in 2023, which is a massive fall in consumption. Things like vehicle imports, which are a proxy for discretionary spending, they were down 44% over 2022, right? So 2023 was a really, really bad year for the economy. It was unequivocally bad. And most business people here really felt that. Despite what the official GDP number of 5% showed, the economy was tough. If we fast forward to 2024, things actually really picked up, particularly in the second half of the year. So if we look at the export number, and again, adjusting for electrical to take out that volatility, exports grew 25%. In comparison, Vietnam, who we often hear about as a manufacturing exporting powerhouse, they only grew 14%, right? So we've far exceeded the efforts of Vietnam there. On consumption-based taxes, so again, that's our proxy for consumer spending, fell 13% in 2023. It increased by 6% in 2024, up to October. And in the month of October, it was 33% higher than the same month in 2023. Right? Again, it's getting to the strength of the economy in the second half of 2024. And then on vehicle imports, 44% down in 2023. For the year of 2024, was up 28%. And again, that increased by more than that at the back end of the year. In fact, at the end of the year, they're about 80% higher than what they were at the same time a year previously. Right? So a lot of strength in the economy in the second half of 2024.
So, what would be your general outlook then for Cambodia for 2025, maybe into Q1 of 26? Is it all predictable?
Uh, Personally, I don't think I've ever been more uncertain around what the outlook holds. And so there's a few big things happening here. So first of all, you've got that underlying strength in the economy going into next year, the current year, from 2024 into 2025. But we think export growth is going to slow, right? It was at very high levels in 2024. Unlikely to achieve those again, but they should still grow, just at a slower level. Tourism should improve. Still below where we were in 2019, right? So we're not back where we should be yet. And we really have not grown at the rate that Vietnam, for example, has grown, despite having one of the most amazing tourism products in the world. But it will improve. Domestic demand will keep increasing. The property market is going to be ugly for many years to come. Loan growth for banks should be a bit better, but it's that international environment that is so much more challenging. And so this year we have not put out a forecast for economic growth, given that uncertainty. We look at the World Bank's forecasts. They're looking at about 5.5% growth in GDP for 2025. We think that's reasonable, but we also we think the risks are weighted to the downside more than the upside on that number, meaning it's more likely to be lower than that number than higher than that number, given that international uncertainty.
Well, so Stephen, you mentioned the tourism numbers really are definitely not coming back up to where people in the industry, which is a big part of the economy, especially up in well, on the coast and Siem Reap as well as Phnom Penh. And then you talked in our webinar about rebranding. What are some of the factors that you think play into why that particular sector of the economy is having trouble, and can rebranding help address that?
Yeah, I don't see it so much as rebranding per se, more fixing the brand and being aware of how the brand looks externally.
Fair.
So it's, as I mentioned, right, Cambodia has one of the best tourism products in the world. But when we look at air arrivals, which we think is a much better proxy for tourist arrivals than Vietnamese and Thais coming back and forth across the border, but not really being genuine tourists. In terms of air arrivals, so we grew 29% last year. Vietnam grew 40%. And if we look at air arrivals as a percent of 2019 numbers, Cambodia grew 53, or we're at 53% of 2019, right? So we're still just over half of where we were before COVID. Vietnam is back to almost 100% of where they were pre-COVID. Right? So they have done so much better than us, but I would argue we actually have a better tourist product. And one of the reasons why, in fact, the single biggest reason why that's not happening is what I think of as the damage to the Cambodian brand from the scam centers in particular. And that's where more has to be done to fix that issue, so that Cambodia's reputation is not being tarnished in the eyes of the world.
Fair enough. So if you were going to give a kind of a long-term and a short-term outlook for business in Cambodia, what would that be? And maybe 3 to 4 points. And what would be your biggest point of advice for people doing business in the kingdom?
Yeah. So long-term, we are still hugely optimistic about Cambodia. It is fundamentally a high growth economy. It's very pro-business. It's in a very dynamic region. There's a lot of positives to support growth in Cambodia, and this is where business should come if they want to see high growth. Short term, there are challenges, particularly around the international environment and the uncertainties associated with that. And so for business, when you have that level of uncertainty, it's very much around focusing on cash flow. Cash is king. Making sure that your operational leverage isn't too high. So if you're wanting to grow, try and make your costs variable rather than fixed, so that if the growth that you're expecting, if something changes, particularly given some of the uncertainty that we're seeing coming out of the US at the moment, you can quickly adjust your business. Whereas if you have high fixed costs, that's when people get into trouble. So it's having that agility to manage your business quickly, having low operational leverage is what companies need in the short term to navigate this uncertain environment.
Great. Well, thank you very much for this, Stephen. Appreciate your time. Stephen Higgins from Mekong Strategic Capital. And I also want to thank our founding platinum sponsors, Climb Cambodia and the Phillip Group, Phillip Bank, for their ongoing support. And we thank you. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and on LinkedIn to stay up to date on all of our activities. And join us when you can for one of our next webinars. Thank you again, Stephen.
Thank you, Ginny.